Hello everyone, Bill Molyneux here with Bill's History World with Goober the Traveling Bear, and we are truly honored today. We are interviewing Mr. John Michael Priest, and famous author, historian, and battlefield guide, and I appreciate him giving me the time to do an interview. And I know Herman Luttman, one of the famous game designers, uses his books for his research material. So Michael, take it away. What book do you have in your arms right now?
This is Stand to It and Give 'em Hell, the battle on July 2nd from Longstreet's Assault. Came out in 2014 from Savas Beatty, and it's doing extremely well.
Wow.
I do things backwards. My first book was on Gettysburg, was Pickett's Charge, Into the Fight. Then I did this one, and now I have a new one coming out, limited edition at first, from Savas Beatty. Strong men of the regiment sobbed like children, the defeat of Reynolds' First Corps on July 1st, 1863.
Very good. I got to ask a half a dozen questions. From this book here, is it from the regimental view or the command corps level or the private soldier himself in the field?
It's like any of my books. It's about the common soldier, but it also includes tactics, brigadier generals and all, when they do something. I don't go into grand strategy because my experience in studying the battles on the ground level is that once they get started, it's a high school brawl with large caliber weapons. No one's in control, really.
Well, I know the one Antietam book, what I thought was interesting was everyone just sort of loses track of where everyone is because of the chaos of the smoke. And how did you get to write like that, to get that kind of detail?
It's a long story. My dad was a wire runner in the Marines in World War II on Guadalcanal. And I grew up around World War II veterans. So I didn't hear the history that was in the history book. I heard the history from them. And it struck me that so few books are written really about the common soldier. My favorite books are Bill Malden, Up Front, and Ernie Pyle, Brave Men, and Eric Remarque's All Quiet on the Western Front. They sort of got me interested in seeing what the individual experienced, because that's what the individual carries back, the memories or lack of them of what they went through, and that's what it's all about.
Wow. So we have this Gettysburg book, and it has what, the 20th Maine and the full second day, correct?
Not Culp's Hill, just along the Emmitsburg Road.
Okay.
And it's battalion, regiment, battery detail, generals when they do something, and if the men hear them. That's always a secondary thought.
Well, I have to ask, I read the Newt Gingrich book on Gettysburg 10 years ago where they hypothetically did that flank march around Big Round Top. And since this is a second day book, what would have happened? Do you think that would have been successful?
No. They didn't know quite where they were going. The way it lined up is that once the fighting starts on the southern end of the field, it pulled in Longstreet's right wing and just completely tore it up. If Sickles hadn't been where he was, the Confederates would have gone over Little Round Top, but he was there, and they put up their skirmish lines were thorough. They did the best they could with what they had.
Okay, so as in the movie, go around to the right, that probably wouldn't have worked then.
I don't think so, but then I don't know. I'm not a general.
All right.
That's above my pay grade.
Well, I have Antietam, The Soldier's Battle, another book by you. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Well, I started collecting material on Antietam back in 1979. Started taking over the house. And I said, do something with it or throw it out. So sat down and started writing. And it just sort of grew. I mean, I used hundreds and hundreds of sources.
Really? What I liked about your book is you had those human interest stories. The bees is a really interesting story. And for the people that are watching this, I have a lot of viewers in England and Scotland. And can you just mention the bee story?
Well, when French was making his assault against the sunken road, the first line that went through apparently went around the roulette fence yard with some crates in it. But the second line coming through, brand new, they're mostly all brand new, 130th Pennsylvania, they pulled down the picket fence around the white crates on top of Private Theodore Boyles, and the colonel rode over him, and he was wounded by a picket, a literal picket. There's all kinds of accounts. One said a solid shot coming over the hill hit him. Another one said that they knocked him down. But the one fellow that remembered it most is that for about 10 minutes or so, the bees were worse than the bullets. I mean, it really routed them. They were knocked down all the crates, all the beehives. So they might have knocked it down and the artillery round might have hit it, but they said it was awful.
Really? So there was bees everywhere?
Everywhere.
Wow.
Honey bees.
Well, yeah, that stands out quite a bit. One of the things I want to ask you about with the Antietam book and the battlefield itself, how has Antietam been able to stay, it looks like it did during the battle, whereas you go to Gettysburg, Chancellorsville, you know, you have the McDonald's and everything. How has that been possible?
Antietam started out, I think, with 90 acres. I'm probably wrong on that. Back turn of the 20th, into the 20th century, and 21st century, 20th century. And by 1989, it probably had some 600 acres. When I wrote this book, everything north of the visitor center was private land. The West Woods was private land. The lower end of the field west of Burnside Bridge was private land. And since then, they've really expanded to well over 3,000 acres. The ground is preserved because the farmers kept farming it, plain and simple. I mean, there was a time you could go into the cornfield and dig up artifacts when it was private land. But since the 1990s, and even up into 2012, I think it is, they still keep getting land on the interior of the field that really help interpret it. And it's remarkable to walk it. It really is.
Well, when I noticed when I'm there, and Goober the Traveling Bear was there a couple times this past year making videos, we look in every direction. We don't see a Holiday Inn sign or Kentucky Fried Chicken or General Pickett's Buffet like you do in Gettysburg. So.
Well, Antietam's never been commercialized. A lot of the thing rests with the fact that the battle wasn't considered important. We really didn't start getting a lot of traffic in, I think, until Ken Burns came out with his series in '89, and that sparked people coming by. But even at that, it was always a place you passed through to go to the important battle, Gettysburg. And Gettysburg has been a tourist trap ever since the battle ended. I mean, there's stories about that, and I'm not an expert on that because I know that if I say something that's wrong, you're going to hear about it.
Well, we could always say Goober the Traveling Bear gave you bad advice.
No, I mean, I don't claim to be an expert. I know a lot, and I study a lot, but I'm not an expert. I'm a human being who makes mistakes at times. Not deliberately, just naturally.
Well, when you give tours at Antietam, did you have you ever had anyone famous, like a dignitary or a congressman or anything like that?
I took out a senator, I think, from out west, but that was a long time ago, and I can't remember. I took out a fellow about 8 years ago who was a rather wealthy fellow. We went around with his chauffeur, and it's like, whoa, this is out of my league. But, you know, it doesn't bother me if they're famous or not. I wouldn't know. I mean,
very good. I'm just curious. My friend Elwood Christ, Woody from Gettysburg, he passed away, my dear friend, but he had Mickey Rooney once, and
that would be wild.
And he had Mickey Rooney, and he came back with all kinds of stories, and so I was just curious if
no,
in that sense.
Not in my knowledge.
All right. Well, the Antietam book, and is this still available? Because it was written, 2 decades ago?
It's waiting to be sent out again by White Mane. They're waiting on the printer, and the printer's been bogged down. So it hasn't been out all summer, but it's still available probably over eBay, or it is on Amazon, on, what is it, video? Oh, not video.
The Kindle version.
Kindle, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, this has been such a treat, and now many people may not know this, but you're an award-winning game master, GM for miniature wargaming, and I've played in your Alamo games, I've played in a couple of your Civil War games, and I've had the honor to actually play a war game in your basement here on 2 occasions. So now we're going to go venture into the basement to the wargame room, and Goober the Traveling Bear is going to come along with us, and so I hope all our viewers will follow me into Mike's wargaming basement. Well, we are in Mike's basement, his wargaming basement of 54mm figures. Oh my gosh, Goober the Traveling Bear is with me, and Mr. Mike, what do we have down here?
This is where I play solitaire games. It's mostly dice-driven and random movement, but they're regimental level. Each flag represents a regiment, each figure 25 men. Average regimental strength is 300 men. And I have them on bases here to make them easier to move. The fences, most of them are handmade or marked, redone. It represents skirmishers, infantry, mounted officers, regimental officers, brigadiers and their staff are stuck over on that table right now. So it's all a matter of men activating. For instance, I got a bag with 2 sets of Scrabble tiles.
Okay.
Now, the R means to regroup, try to regroup men, or try to restore officers by rolling to see if someone replaced them. That's a random move, and that's the Union one. That would consist that person's move for that. And lo and behold, the Confederates do the same thing. And so if there's officers down, they have a chance to restore them, see if a non-com stepped up, and it's done by a die roll.
Okay.
Red is bad, green is good. For instance, if the Union troops with this regiment lost 1 officer, a 9 means higher than a green, that officer's not there. And if they get down to the point that they lose all their officers, they can't move.
Wow.
They can't move,
So,
and they can't rally.
So losing officers are bad, and this table is incredible. How many feet are we talking here?
Roughly 18,
20 feet?
by 5.
Wow. It's amazing. This table is really interesting. I'm hoping my mic will pick up your talking here. These artillery pieces are really unique. Where did you find these?
Classic toy soldiers, believe it or not. My daughter bought me a set of butternut Confederates with an artillery piece and limber, and that's from them.
Okay,
classic toy soldiers.
They're like they're bigger than a 12-pounder. They look
yeah.
like they're. So let's go on to your next table. What do we have here at the next one?
Okay, well this is a mess, but what you have are Confederate regiments who have managed to get up to the road. They've been hit by canister twice, which is why the fence is down. Shooting, like for instance, they've already fired. If they fire again, there's a deduction for the smoke there. Here, here, here. They've fired across this field about 4 or 5 times, so it would reduce their fire depending on distance. The distance there is 7 inches, and at 7 inches, each infantry piece would roll a D10, and they have to roll an 8 or lower to hit. The problem is, it goes, since they're firing 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, only 2s will hit. The smoke's too thick.
Oh, so you're taking into account for smoke.
Yeah, I don't remove smoke from the field.
Okay.
And that can affect whether or not they can see you even coming at them.
Now, I have to ask you, those artillery pieces are unique also.
Yes, they are, where did I see those?
I think those are old Britons, aren't they?
No, they're not Britons. I have an original Britons, but I don't bring it out.
Okay.
I think they came from classic toy soldiers too, I think.
Well, let's go take a look at the next table down. This is, and of course, there's only a few of us wargaming in '54.
Well, H.G. Wells would be proud.
Yes, but everyone's doing the 6mm and 15mm anymore so much.
Well, when you're at our age, you can't see the flags and you move the wrong people.
And you move the wrong people. All right.
This is a two Union regiments, large ones. 1, 2, 3, 400 men, 1, 2, 300 men, and a section of artillery. Now, what the thing with this artillery is that if I were playing this board, they would have the option to fire on any of the other boards because it's all in range.
Wow! So they could
cause an awful lot.
They could lob shells all the way over there.
Yeah, and case shot, and solid shot. So it varies. They're not always on target, and excuse my reach. This is like when you use a shell or a case shot. Let's say you're aiming here and it falls short. Anything in that radius is affected.
Oh, okay. And
so if your lines are too close together, you could hit a second line. It'll be reduced by half, but you could hit a second line.
Wow. I'm going to stop the camera. I want to get a sip of your officers over there on that table.
Okay.
All right, we're at the officers' table?
Well, no, these are reinforcements. Skirmishers, Burdans, regular infantry, Iron Brigade, but 5 regiments to a brigade, and each of these are a brigade with staff. The brigadier on this brigade is this odd fella here with a color bearer, and there's 1 officer, 1 courier for each regiment, so he's got 5.
Wow.
So that if something goes bad, they can actually go out when an officer movement is called for and try to rally a regiment.
So how many 54mm Civil War figures do you think you have here? I mean, it looks like you have 1,000 or more.
Geez. I don't know. At least 300.
Well, there's a lot. There's a lot. Well, this has been such a treat. We're going to close out our video. Let me get in a position here where we have good lighting. Well, this has been such a treat for Goober the Traveling Bear to meet you. Actually, I've actually met you many times, but Goober hasn't. Thank you for allowing me to interview you and to see your wonderful war game room, especially since it's 54. How do you want to close this out? You want to just, what do you have to say to everyone out there in YouTube land?
keep studying, form your own opinions based on the evidence. Don't worry about what someone else said. And be open to change. If you're not right, admit it and go on. I mean, study, learn, and play games, because these teach you how the men thought on the field.
Very good. And you know, I notice you have a lot of smoke on the field. And in your one book I read, boy, you're always talking, you know, it's always, I'm reading about the smoke and the confusion, and the men can't see where they're going even.
Yeah, it causes problems.
Well, thank you very much for your time today. Everyone out there, stay safe, be kind, be courteous, and play a war game or visit a historic site near you. Thank you, Mr. Mike, for your interviews.
You're welcome.